So the news here is that you are the problem. You, white man, it doesn't matter which ethnic group you're from, your very existence is the issue. And this is something we hear in reverse quite a lot as an accusation against the quote unquote far right, which we're never able to actually meet in person or online. What they
I've
believe.
met the far right, and they are us.
But this idea that, like, oh man, we have to stand up and censor everyone who disagrees with us because you know what? Those people, they hate trans people, they hate gay people, they hate people with brown skin. And you know why they believe that? Because they think they literally should not exist. And that's the charge that's always leveled as this spooky figures, which we're not able to actually find. But trust me, they're out there, and that's why we need to censor everyone, even on the center right to everything else, including us, of course. And the exact opposite is actually the truth, which is your mere existence is the problem. It is actually something people with power have an issue with and are able to exercise it. And it can be perfectly summed up by this story in the Telegraph here. The BBC radio star struggles with, quote, too many white colleagues.
Don't we all?
And this sounds like a pretty mental thing to say, usually, right? And you'd occasionally get the story every couple of months. There'd be some mental case in media who will just say something horrific about white people or how they hate them.
At the risk of sounding really gauche, I mean, this is a crystal clear example of a racist.
Yes.
Right?
I
mean, that could not be more racist if it tried to be.
Now, hell over here.
Yeah.
Because not even going to try.
Let me try. Arthanayakini. Yaki? Average British.
We're getting close to Yukmagamur with that one.
Yeah, we are, yeah.
There we are. He's a person who works for Radio 5 Live. And I suppose I'll just keep the image on his face.
Of course he works for the BBC.
To remind you of the man who hates you for existing. And he says here that the overwhelmingly white working environment is affecting his mental health.
Or the BBC?
Yes.
Struggle to believe that.
For people who don't know, the BBC actually is massively underrepresented when it comes to white staff. And then when it comes to British staff, we don't know the numbers. But again, it's going to be massively underrepresented, especially the English there.
Yeah.
But even with a forced push by the company he works for to kick white people out, he's still getting mental health issues from seeing them. Now, that is someone who looks at you with your skin tone and says your mere existence is something he wants removed. Otherwise, how else does he get to that conclusion? We'll read the details to see if you can say if I'm wrong. It says that the presenter told a journalism diversity conference on Wednesday, "It's really affecting me that I walk in and all I see is white people." His colleagues' response when he told them this was to reply defensively that I have a right to exist. No, they said...
well, that would be a perfectly reasonable response.
Yes. No, instead they apparently respond with that they're not racist.
What?
And he says that this is them missing the point.
Yeah, he doesn't care about your opinion. He looks at you and is like, oh God, more white people around. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, he literally just looked at a group of white people and then they said, well, we're not racist. And he turned around and said, you're missing the point. I don't know what else to get from that interaction. Then he is literally telling them your existence is the problem.
God, imagine going into work the next day.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward.
It's just like,
yeah. How to alienate yourself in one easy step.
Yeah, just say, I hate all the white people I work with.
Well, now 53% of the office hate you. Or at least they should if they had any sense. Because, you literally just told them you want them dead, effectively. Speaking of...
Not necessarily dead, just, not in my presence. Because I'm too good to be in a room with white people.
I do live here and work here. So.
Yeah, well, that's a great question, why you live in a European country.
But he says, speaking of the journalism
just a quick thing there. Like, you could literally go to almost any other country in the world. If you just threw a dart at a map, you're probably going to hit a country where the majority of people are not white.
Yes. Just white people are a global minority.
Yeah.
10% or something of the population of the earth.
And yet, somehow, he's like, I'm trapped in a country full of white people.
Well, his parents are from Sri Lanka, and he could get Sri Lankan citizenship and go there and work in media. I have a feeling he's not going to.
Yeah, weird.
Some strange reason. That's not desirable. Some strange reason. We'll see his pay packet in a minute and you'll figure that one out.
Oh, will we? Right, okay. Hi, folks. Sorry to interrupt the video, but I just wanted to announce that we have a new line of merch in our merch store. The merch store was kind of empty for a while, and so I thought, right, okay, what do I actually want on shirts? And so I just went through some of the most epic and true things that I think that historical people have said, and John managed to make an amazing set of merch out of it. And we will have extra things coming in the store, such as posters for these to go on. Thanks for everything, folks. Now back to the video.
So he's speaking at the Journalism Diversity Fund Conference at BBC Media City in Salford.
does that exist?
Why does that exist? We'll see. It's all about money. It always is. And he said, I've seen a lot of people leave this building because they couldn't deal with the culture. After
I mean, that's probably why I'd leave the building.
After speaking about his interaction with that, but presumably he's speaking about people who are not white, who also hate white people and couldn't live with it. Being around white people, so left Salford and went back to London? I'm not...
I need to move to a non-white country, London.
He said that others found that they had to try to be a certain type of person to progress with the broadcaster, adding, if you want journalists to progress, they have to be who they are. I don't think there's a single Muslim involved in the senior editorial process at the BBC Radio 5. Yeah.
Have you considered working for Al Jazeera?
Yeah, well, also, he was a big figure at Radio 5. You could just ask for that. I doubt that the senior team at BBC Radio 5 are a bunch of people who would turn around and go, we hate Muslims. No, that's not going to be the response, is it? So it's just bollocks. He went on, the hardest thing is to walk into a room, look around, and nobody looks like you. I think the hardest thing is getting your balls stuck in between a door. I think that would be pretty awful.
But what I love is I know all white people look alike. You know, it just that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like, we walk into the office and go, right, it's just loads of copies of me. Brilliant. Like,
and I hate every single one of them because they are white. Well, thanks, mate. That's good to hear, Nahal. I'm glad you're here.
how much does he get paid? I'm curious now.
One more moment.
Oh, okay.
He says he's noticed this difference since living up north after he left London 20 years ago.
Oh,
Sorry, he was in London for 20 years and now he's moved up north.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he's discovered white people and he's horrified.
Right. So in London, he didn't have this problem.
No.
Moved somewhere in the north where immigration has been less impactful.
There's a statement from someone from the BBC who said that it's a producer of Radio 5 Live, and he says the organisation is committed to tackling the lack of diversity. So because this man...
We're so sorry.
Yeah, this man turned up to a place that's got white people, said, I hate them. And Cheryl over here, who's the spokesman, said, don't worry, I'll deal with that.
How many kids does Cheryl Varley have?
Don't know. After inviting the GDF bursary recipients to a tour of the newsroom at the conference, Cheryl also added that the BBC needs you a lot more than you need them, because if we do not represent our audience, the future of the BBC is grim. Keep that in mind, because what the hell does that even mean in this context?
I don't know, but I hope the future for the BBC is grim.
Well, here's what that thing is. You were asking earlier, this news conference. It's literally just giving money to people who aren't white, straight men.
Oh, right, okay.
They just give money to people.
We scroll down and look at the faces. What's that white woman doing there?
Oh, she's homosexual.
Oh,
so
right.
She gets
deserves
free money. Yeah. They don't just get free money, as you can see here. All these white people who are awful, as Nahal would say, have also been sent to the conference and then given a tour of the BBC studio, as I mentioned earlier.
This is literally the congratulations, Sahib, for being a Sikh.
Yes, this is indeed just We Hate White People, Inc.
But just congratulations for being Chinese. Pat on the head. Have some money.
Well, money talks. It's just really depressing how small amount of it turns people into prostitutes. But as for him, it was no small amount at all. 150k.
Jesus Christ.
So Nahal here takes 150 grand from the license fee payers, so taxpayers here, because it is a tax, so not a levy. I'm sick of hearing that.
Yeah.
Sorry, it is compulsory if you want to watch BBC programming, which, by the way, don't pay it.
Yeah.
They'll send you letters, and you know what I do? I put them in the bin, and I carry on with my day. You know what happens? No one ever comes around. Nobody actually cares to try and stop people who aren't paying their TV licenses. It's not really a thing. If someone does ever come around, guess what the policy is? They can't use force to enter your home. So if you literally just close the door, they have to go home. So there you are. And if you want to actually stop this, that is the way to do it.
Isn't there an organization called like Defund Racism or something?
Not that I'm aware of.
There's one thing I'd say on the fee. You can go on their website, and it's really quick. I'm pretty much a tech boomer, but it's really quick. It's literally like 4 clicks or something. You type in your postcode, you can just tick something saying, I never watch the BBC or stream the BBC. And I actually genuinely don't,
Yeah,
so I'm not even lying on that. And it's honestly about 4 clicks. And then they don't even send you letters or anything. You're allowed to do that. You're legitimately allowed to do that.
There you go, Callum.
Well, I believe legally they have to stop because you've told them.
Right.
And then they have no right to harass you.
And I've done that for the last few years, 4, 5, 6 years, something like that. And every now and again, you get an email saying, "It's been a year. Are you sure you're still not watching it?" You go, "Yep." And that's it.
Why would I?
They will never get another penny out of me. Not another penny.
I just send them like that article from the Telegraph to send that back. Say, yeah, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, I don't wish to fund Nahal here on 150 grand a year to tell me that he hates me because I'm white.
I mean, that is literally like what 11, 12K a month.
The whole BBC should have its royal charter removed.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I don't know. We have to pay this guy this much because he comes out with
Liquidated,
such
pushed into the sea.
brilliant thoughts the rest of the year. This might have been a mistake. The rest of the year, he's bang on the money. He really advances British political discussion by telling people about how wokeism is good. This is just a series of tweets about wokeism, and it just goes on and on. And it's just him talking about how wokeism is a good thing, actually. I don't know why people hate it.
Look at his total lack of social media traction. How many followers does he have?
I don't know. I mean, he's getting paid so much. 100,000?
100,000.
He's paid 150K. I'm sorry.
It's 2 retweets, 0 retweets.
Yeah, it goes on and on.
Yeah, it's telling, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always think that's really telling when someone's got a load of followers, 100,000 or millions of followers, and they've like hardly anyone's engaging with it.
It's totally true. It shows that they're just astroturfed.
The rest of the time, he does tweet funny things, which are completely unhinged, such as this. My son got called smelly by 2 players on the opposing football team. We all know that's a euphemism for saying the P word.
Nigel Farage got called smelly on I'm a Celebrity. So did the woman on that call him the P word, did she?
I thought it was Sri Lankan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even...
You're not from... But anyway...
Doesn't even make sense. There we are.
But this
Point being, he's unhinged.
This is going to come as a shock as well, but young boys can often be rude to one another, even if they're white.
Right, yeah. That's a classic thing. If someone doesn't smell, you call them smelly.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's like so...
Smelly Alan Partridge. Yeah. That's just the sort of thing.
You're clearly being racist to Alan Partridge there.
This is Gary Lineker saying he was bullied for being black all over again.
Yeah. And also, he'll tell you that if you want him to shut up, that's because you're racist.
Ah, yes.
A simple definition of white privilege is white people telling black and brown people to stop talking about race.
Just very bored of it, Nihal.
Well, you also did say that I should not exist because I'm white, and that gives you mental stress.
Yeah.
I kind of do want you to shut up.
Is it brown privilege if you're constantly talking about race and you can literally say, ugh, I'm just surrounded by white people and all of them are like, we're so sorry?
Well, kind of. I mean, here's him saying that, bro, I'm not a diversity hire, trust me. Which...
you do sound a lot like a diversity hire.
I mean, why do you get paid that much but produce so little traction?
To be a white presenter and not have to deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have that job.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to deal with it.
That's so funny. Oh, they keep calling me a diversity hire. So if I was white, I wouldn't have this problem. Yeah, you'd be working in a cleaning factory. Some nonsense.
And this is absolutely just horrific on every front. But I do want to remind ourselves of how much of a drop in the ocean this is, because I didn't realize just how much money the BBC make. Because this story broke at the same time. Oh, sorry, this is the demographics first to make the point of, funnily enough, there's not that many white people at the BBC. 58% of the BBC staff are white. Meanwhile, 82% of the people of England and Wales are white. So maybe about 30% English is what you're looking at there. There should be a previous link, John, if you could load it up, actually.
So non-white people are massively overrepresented already at the BBC.
We can say that.
Yes.
Like, hang on, go back. Right. 16% are Hispanic or Latino? What? Like, we don't have Hispanics and Latinos over here because we don't share a massive land border with Mexico.
11% are black or African.
Yeah, who are
American.
3% of the population.
No, I love that. Black or African American.
Again, why would there be African Americans? Right, but 16% Hispanic or Latino. What do you mean from Spain?
Yes.
Europeans? Like, that's not a minority group, is it?
I want to know the breakdown of how
Spaniards.
many Latino X's are among those Latinos.
There can't possibly be any Latinos there because we literally, like, the South American population of Britain is very low because they can't just walk here.
But trust me, the BBC needs its Mexicans. Otherwise, what else are they going to do? But here's the story here, because that is
cleaning staff. I mean, what?
That is representative of an active measure being taken to weed out white people because you don't like them. And we can see the money spent on making sure that planning and action is done in this article from the Telegraph. The £600,000 a year are spent on diversity and inclusion staff, and those people, their salaries jot up to 600K there. Their entire purpose is to exactly what Nahal wants, which is what's happening. Which is, let's try and get rid of as many people who have white skin and replace them with anyone else, because Well, otherwise it causes us harm. It might lose us our jobs. I mean, that literally is your position here, that you wish to increase diversity. Your diversity is already higher than the representation of the country, but you want it higher still. Well, the only reason you could want that is because you want to get rid of people you don't like.
Well, surely what they're saying is it's 42% diverse, right?
And then once
So
it
it's
is
100% diverse.
once it's 100% Mexican, the BBC will finally represent the British public.
But like literally
Somehow.
every Spaniard on earth is going to be working for the BBC by the time it's finished.
And of course, even the word diversity has been subverted. It's not about diversity is code for less white.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just less white.
I mean, fundamentally,
Diverse.
which is how the Spanish snuck in.
Definition of the word diverse and diversity has been thrown out the window long ago.
I mean, fundamentally, when it actually gets to a European context, it does become less English because it's less white in the American context because the terms are synonymous, I think, in American lexicon. I do wonder at what point they'll get to that at the BBC, or they'll say, well, you know, we've got loads of Italians, but whatever.
So it's no good replacing an Englishman with a white Polish person. They really need to be of a black or brown skin.
But eventually.
Depends on the
Eventually.
NPC you're talking to, I think.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you tell them that Slavs exist and they go, what? They genuinely have no idea. So, but getting back to the kind of people who deserve that amount of money. Well, here's the BBC's budget. I didn't realize how large this thing is.
Oh, yeah.
As you can see here, it's well over 5 billion for 2023 alone.
License fee income is 3.74 billion.
Don't pay it.
Stop paying it. Like,
But-
let them live or die on their income and other revenue.
Because the thing about this is, as Calvin has pointed out, they are losing views on pretty much everything, every single year, en masse.
That is a staggering amount of loss of views as well.
But for any other company, losing your viewership, if you're a media company, loses you the money.
Yeah.
And therefore you've got to readjust. But if you're the BBC, you can see how that money
Scale upwards.
goes up as the views have gone down.
But look at the staggering amount as well, going from nearly 900,000 to 300,000 in 12 years. Like, that is a collapse.
Like, you actually have to start not paying it if you wish to see change, and that is the route.
I wrote an article when I was quite new to Lotus, so a couple of years ago now. I think I called it "We Need to Talk About Auntie" or something, where it's just a scree against the BBC. And I mentioned earlier, if anyone doesn't know, any Americans or people from other countries and things, about the Royal Charter. So there's literally a Royal Charter that says that the BBC are legally allowed to sort of levy this tax against you. What is it now? 160 odd quid a year or
I
something?
don't know, I don't pay it.
Yeah, me neither, but I think it's about that much. Now that's that's the government can just revoke that if they want. Boris threatened to once or twice, but obviously had no intention whatsoever of actually doing it. The government, if they wanted to, could just stop that and sort of overnight, effectively, it would go on for a few more years until it naturally ran out.
Yeah.
But then at that point, they wouldn't legally be allowed to even threaten people that will send a van round or someone will come and knock on the door or anything like that. That would just take away that 3 billion or something.
They'd have to actually make money.
Yeah. And it wouldn't necessarily immediately mean just the absolute death overnight of the BBC, but it would mean they'd have to make
Incentive.
money like a normal business.
And they would have to cut back significantly on extraneous spending.
Well, there is some of that because of inflation, and then there's also a freeze on the amount of money they can charge per license.
No, Newsnight cut to only 30 minutes.
Yeah. Is anything lost? Has anything been lost? Are we
Will
worse
anyone
off?
notice?
This is apparently a part of a deal to save 500 million a year.
Jesus.
I mean, apparently they have 57 staff working on just Newsnight alone to produce 5 hours a week. 57 human beings.
I can't even imagine what we'd be able to do with those sort of resources.
And of course,
That's just Newsnight.
of course, it is sort of an unhinged, partisan,
Rant.
globalist, pro-NATO,
Oh, yeah.
like nightmare of a thing. So, yeah,
But let's,
bye-bye.
I suppose, remind ourselves of everything else. I mean, the other several billion you've got to spend somewhere. So I thought I'd remind ourselves of the fact that the BBC is explicitly anti-white all year. It's why people like Nahal over there. They're able to say such just egregious things, and he will have a job tomorrow. This won't affect him at all, because, of course, the viewership doesn't matter. It's just about ideology. And we can see it in a very few examples that I'm going to remind ourselves of. I mean, first and foremost, this one I just love, which is back when the female football team were winning, whilst the diverse male football team had just been destroyed in the international competitions, and the female team were winning. So this was the response from a BBC host.
It was an historic 8-goal victory for England last night as the Lionesses secured their place in the quarter-finals. But all starting 11 players and the 5 substitutes that came onto the pitch were all white. And that does point towards a lack of diversity in the women's game in England. And it's something that Alex Scott has been investigating.
Investigating?
Generations,
Look at the picture. No diversity. Investigation over.
generations later, we'll look back at something like that. I hope.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And it will be like something from the 30s. I hate to invoke that sort of crap because it's cliche, but they'll look back at
It is race hatred.
the way we look back at some things and be like, wow, like the black and white minstrel show or something.
And
It's just like
the bottom
embarrassing.
stuff like
It's
that.
embarrassing.
Well,
Yeah,
just-
right. Yeah.
Just like, oh my God.
We were actually just perfectly on the money. I know it's Godwin's law, but it is true. If you go look at Schreiker's writings about the Jews, he just calls them like vermin and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that is how you refer to us. I mean, I will go further with this because there's just too much. This is skiing. You know when you watch the BBC and there's something on skiing? What do you think this is going to be? Let's have a look.
We're going to turn our attention to a very important issue facing our whole industry.
The lack of ethnic diversity in snow sports is visible at every level.
Cortina may be one of only a handful of places to host the Alpine World Championships, but it's similar to every resort in Europe and across North America in one respect. The fact that almost everyone in these beautiful places is white. That is certainly the case here in
God,
Largs
that is
and
just-
has been at all of the places that I've been fortunate enough to visit through competition and now work.
You
When you're in the
when I was
majority, you fit in. So why would you question it? It's only by looking at this through a different lens you start to realise that these environments perhaps aren't as equal, as accessible, or as welcoming as we'd like to think.
Oh, shut up,
Do,
bro.
do you not remember when I was like, look, you've got to be careful about putting Boris Johnson's statements about homosexuals and Muslim women out because actually, from your perspective, they're a condemnation, but from other people's perspective, that's an endorsement.
That joke does
Just
work.
saying, you know,
Skiing holidays
there's
out
no
there.
diversity here, guys. Isn't this terrible? It's like, well, I do like skiing.
I also love the aspect here is like it's not accessible. It's a bus.
It's a ski slope.
Yeah.
Have you guys gone skiing? Like,
It's not accessible at all. No.
there's no sign up telling you
All right.
No.
Yeah.
none of you.
Yeah, but it's also not accessible as in you have to be able to ski.
Yeah, it's not hard.
Wow, it's not that easy.
But no, my point being, if you wanted to go skiing, there's
What?
nothing stopping you. But the people who want to go skiing are white, therefore something's gone wrong.
On the piece, they've
Is
got
the-
like
The
a
state,
skin color chart. No, you're too dark.
Yeah.
You can't get on the ski lift.
I would love to
Um,
see them go to a track and field event in London and just be like, one of the problems here is that there's too many blacks reporting for the BBC Live.
With that same sort of serious expression.
Yeah,
Like this guy like wants to think that he's reporting on something that's actually meaningful. Like,
I
look,
know him. He's been around for years. He's a skater dude, isn't he?
I've no idea.
He always used to commentate on the X Games or whatever.
he's just trying to give us a serious expression. This is a real problem, but
Yeah.
they do so little work, get paid so much.
I
And
know.
the reason for that is because they just hate white people. I was like, what a weird world.
The thing
Nice
is, there's
work
like
if you
it's
can
a little bit of a culture thing, though, isn't it? There's certain things that are sort of fairly European or Northwest European. Even I mean,
Yeah.
skiing, yachting.
Yeah.
I imagine there's not a great deal of diversity in the yachting world.
I mean, this was literally the premise of what was the Jamaican bobsled team film.
Oh yeah,
Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings, yeah. This is literally the premise of Cool Runnings.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny to have a Jamaican bobsled? How are they going to do it? There's literally no snow in Jamaica. Ha ha ha. Many hijinks ensue. Like, obviously, people in cold climates can go skiing because there's snow there. People in sub-Saharan Africa have slightly more trouble actually managing it because there's just no bloody snow.
It's not the only incident where it's obviously just mad. There's this one as well, which I found from Defund the BBC, which is just kind of creepy. So I don't know if you could see here, but it's some TV show. And in the TV show,
What?
someone messages this black character here, who is another black character. And she messages him with pictures of ugly white babies with the phrase, do you ever just Google ugly white babies?
Well, so they're not ugly babies.
But what would you respond if someone messaged you that? You'd be like, no, you freak.
Yeah, why would I?
He writes back, those babies are going to vote for Trump. And then this is played off as a joke. And it's just like,
Oh.
I mean, I hate to be that guy. Do you ever Google ugly black babies? What's the response there that's going to be a permissible joke on the BBC? None. There isn't one. It's just not going to happen. Not to mention the fact, of course, as we've been over many times, the BBC literally decided they weren't going to hire white people for various internships and jobs. It's like, okay. Right, you are literally an anti-white organization. It's why Nahal over there can tell me that me existing causes him mental illness,
Psychic damage.
and therefore we have to be removed from the BBC even when they're underrepresented. They hate us. It is our mere existence that is the problem for them. This is not something that can't be proved and is racism in the ether. We can prove it with their statements and their actions. If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium book clubs, this one on Caitlin Moran's What About Men. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow it on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.